I have lived a life of letting go to grow, painful rejection over and over and over. And when you're doing something good and you're trying to make it in the world, all of the haters, they try to climb and get you. Every day of your life, you will never be free from it. There will always be haters. There will always be people that want to take you down, and there will always be jealousy because they don't love themselves and they don't know who they are because they're not grounded in the Lord. Period.
Comedian Mickey Bell for another week of the Get Over It podcast. Are you having fun? We're interviewing and talking with people who are successful, people that you may know. Some you may not know yet, but you're going to know. But today, you may not know her personally, but you know her product. Have you ever had a Gigi's cupcake? Oh, my goodness. German chocolate is my favorite, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Gigi Butler is joining us today. Now, you know her from Cupcakes, but did you know she started out cleaning Taylor Swift's toilet? That's the stuff that you're going to find out today on the Get Over It podcast. But listen, before we jump in, I want you to share the podcast. Feel free to comment during the show, but if you're listening to us on the audio version, I also want you to hit us up with a great review. Let people know how much you're enjoying the show so they can potentially find the show and enjoy it as well. Listen, the things you're going to learn today, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You're going to absolutely love this. Gigi Butler is in the house. It's time to get over it. Gigi Butler, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you for letting me be here. What an honor.
Oh, listen, I am loving your story. And of course, we love your cupcakes because people are wondering, is this really Gigi from Gigi's Cupcakes? And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to Gigi herself. We're not talking about a store owner. We're not talking about a prepper or a cook. I'm talking to Gigi.
Well, I'm all of that. I was a prepper and a cook and a store owner and the toilet cleaner. So
you had to do all of it.
All of it.
Well, it is so good to have you with us, and you have such an inspiring story, and I cannot wait for the people to hear from you, to hear exactly what you've been through to get to where you are today. So let's start in California. How about that?
Oh, okay. Well, we're going all the way back there.
You're a Cali girl. Come on now. You're a Cali girl.
I'm an Oklahoma girl. I was born in Oklahoma. And
then you ended up in California.
Yes. And then after high school, I moved to Nashville.
Okay. And when you came to Nashville, that's when just things started because you came with the dream to sing, right?
Correct. Yes,
so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the hit, the 90s was, in my opinions, one of the best parts of country music that we've ever had, the best eras, because it was the Garth Brooks and the George Straits and the Reba McEntires and all of these people from the late 80s, Randy Travis, they were all inspiring all of these other artists, Joe Diffie, I mean, name it. You know, there were so many people. So it was an alive time to be in Nashville. It was just an amazing time. And then there was the Shania Twains and the Trisha Yearwoods that came up and the Faith Hills. So I was in that era, and it was just a beautiful time to be a part of the country music scene.
That was kind of one of those eras where you could come to Nashville and you could get discovered. We didn't have the TikTok, we didn't have the Facebook. And so you could come in and you could perform on a street corner. And if the right person heard you, you had a career.
Right. Or downtown at Tootsie's or wherever, the stage or wherever you were at. You know, so many of the musicians that were on the road with the big people at the time, they would all be downtown Broadway during the week, and everyone would play down there. And that's where everyone came to be discovered because there wasn't a TikTok, or you didn't have to have 1.5 million fans to get a record deal those days. You just had to know the right people. Now, I'm not saying it was easy, or it was this different game then, right? So you just had to have the talent and put in the work and know the right person. Yeah. And that's really the key, is really, you know, there were many ways to get into the music industry. So that's in my first book, actually. So
if you want the secrets, we don't mind telling you. You're just going to pay to hear it. I hear you. I hear you.
You just have to, yeah, right.
We had John Barry on the show recently, and we were talking about the fact of how he made it, what he had to go through to get there
Right.
versus today with social media. And I asked him, I said,
Correct.
which would you have rather done? The way you did it, or would you have loved to have had TikTok? And he said, TikTok, it's much easier.
Right.
You just have to
Much
record a
easier.
song, post it, and
Right.
you can get heard.
Correct. And John Barry is one of the most amazing talents on our planet.
Mhm.
And he just such an amazing human too. So he's just lovely. I'm really glad I'm even in the same company with John
Oh,
Barry and with you.
always,
So
always.
what an
So
honor.
a little bit more on the music side. What could you say that you learned from that particular season in your life that you have taken with you today?
I think the biggest, well, there's so many things, but rejection. I feel like I've had more rejection than most people in the world. And it was just having that tough shell and the tenacity to keep going amidst all of the rejection. You know, you're not pretty enough, you're not thin enough, you don't sing good enough, your looks aren't good enough. You're everything that could be anything. It was told to me on a daily basis of
Mm,
what I needed to do to become better on the outside, which really hurt the inside, right? So where I was just dealing with the insecurities, but having the tenacity to get through that and going, okay, tell me how to get better. I'll get better. I want to do this. What's my
right.
goal? What's my end game? So having a very tough shell and facing rejection and still knowing inside that you're something and you're somebody because you're owned by God, really, and
Mm.
dealing with that battle was very difficult. But I think the tenacity to face the rejection was the most important thing I learned.
So tell me how you dealt with that, because we have individuals that will be watching us that deal with rejection on every side, be it from a
Right,
relationship, be it from a job, a career, trying to pursue a dream. So,
right.
how was it that you dealt with that emotionally, knowing that every day you were encountering someone who was telling you you were not enough in whatever
Not good
area of your
enough.
life? Yeah.
Every day. And it started when I was 7 because that's when I decided to be a country music singer-songwriter at 7, and I was going to move to Nashville.
Mm,
Everyone was like, "What? Okay." But that was my goal, and I had my blinders on, and I wasn't gonna let anyone deter me from that goal. That being said, every day I was deterred. I was called a fat, ugly slob my entire life by my brother, which in turn, the whole people at school called me that. Then I
mm,
started a cleaning business at 15, and I was up against, these macho men, sexually harassing me I was doing the commercial cleaning, and I'd go up and they'd say, "You're just a little girl. What are you going to do?" So I was dealing with that. And then being bullied at school and calling me all these things, which I wasn't. But when you're called it every day, you tend to believe what people are saying
absolutely.
to you, right? Going through that and learning that, what, God loves me just how I am, it really didn't click until probably about 5 years ago. Like, it really was like, why am I facing all of this criticism? Why have I been so rejected? And really, I was in the business of rejection, right? So I chose
Mhm,
that.
mhm,
But it was also the devil trying to keep me down from really living my dream of what I needed to be. And music, I thought, was my end goal and my end
right.
game. But God knew better. And he knew that I had a different destiny, but the music business was going to get me tuned up for that destiny. And I
That is so
had to
good.
learn. I had to learn all of how to get over the rejection from people so I can be okay with me. And it takes a very long time to do that. But if you're bought with Christ and you're his child and you're God's child, once you get that in your mind, there's really nothing you can't do. And anyone in the world can say to you that you're going to believe anymore because you have this protection over you. And I had to learn that the hard way.
Yeah, that is so good. But
Yeah.
here's the thing, learning it the hard way means that it's going to be harder to forget,
Right.
because
Yes.
that means you're not going to easily forget it because you had to go through the trenches to learn
Right.
that. And I love this part of your story because of the fact that let me just say this, in my home, I was adopted at birth and I didn't find
Okay.
out till I was 13. But
Wow.
in my life, my mom and dad that raised me, super people, and I love them,
Right.
and they gave me a good biblical foundation. But we're
Right.
taught as kids, don't worry about what other people think. Don't
Right.
base who you are on what other people think. And then you and I
Right.
choose to go into a career where we have to worry
Right.
about what everybody else thinks. And it's like,
Right.
so we were not prepared for that because we were geared to
No.
say, who cares? Sticks and stones. I
Yeah,
mean,
we'll
but
break your
break my
bones, but
bones.
words will never hurt you. Yeah.
But
No,
then
words
we
hurt
choose a
worse.
career. Yeah, we choose a career that says, no, I've got to please everybody. So it
Right.
does become challenging because I don't
It
think
does.
we are mentally or emotionally prepared to fight that battle. So when did
Right.
you decide? Because there had to become a moment in the music side of it because we know
Right.
the outcome and we're going to get there. But on the music side, when did you say, okay, whew, that's enough. I'm done?
Well, it was a very interesting time because I had built my cleaning business and it was very successful. I was doing well. I was doing that at night and still cleaning. And it hadn't been, I mean, it was successful for me. I hadn't hired other people at that
Mhm.
time, but I was making it. I was doing my thing. Well, I was nearing 30 and I had just did a gig at Tootsie's from 10 to 2, getting my butt pinched, passing the tip jar around, propping up my stoned musicians on the, oh, and then dealing with all this sexual harassment, all these idiots out there. You've been there. You know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about. And then the next morning I get up and I'm going to go clean. Well, I'm going to clean for Taylor Swift, right?
Wow.
And she was 15 at the time and I was nearing 30 and I was cleaning for her family, of course.
Mhm.
And this is when it hit me. My brother 2 days prior was like, man, you really need to think about giving it up. I'm like, no, what am I going to do? This is my life since I was 7. Like, this
Mm.
is all I wanted. He's like, you're almost 30. Then I'm getting my butt pinched, making $33 I think it was $32 that night after I paid everybody, singing for 4 hours, working my butt off.
Yeah.
Then getting up, going to clean toilets. Here I am, literally cleaning Taylor Swift's toilet. Well, she comes into her bedroom and she grabs her guitar. And as I'm seeing and as the months of watching Star being born, right? And all of these major songwriters coming in, going in and out when I'm cleaning. And I'm like, how did he get Tony Arata? How did they get this? How did they, of course they got him because they had millions to pay for her career, right?
Yeah. Right.
Which I'm not saying she wasn't talented. So she's sitting on her bed practicing guitar and practicing a song she wrote. And I'm cleaning her toilet and I'm almost 30. I'm 28, I guess. She was 15. And I look at her, I'm like, did you write that song? And she's like, yeah, it's going to be my first album. It was
Wow.
Teardrops on My Guitar. And I'm like, oh my God. And it just hit me. And that afternoon, I packed my cleaning supplies in my truck and I drove home and I was absolutely brokenhearted because everything I had strived for, worked for, wanted was gone. And I knew it was time.
Mm.
And it was so devastating. It was like, oh, well, I'm going to finish. No, that's my entire life. My entire identity was I was going to be a famous country music singer songwriter, period. And I had spent every ounce of money, everything for this goal. So what's next for me? I was a complete loser. And we all know where Taylor Swift went, right?
Well, I think she's
We all know
making it.
I think she's doing okay.
I
I
don't
don't
think
know.
she's cleaning her own toilets today. I
No.
don't think
Mm-mm.
so. Jason may
She's
be, but I don't
definitely
think
not.
he is.
I don't think she's ever cleaned a toilet. So let's just say that, right? Which I don't know if it's good for you or not. I think every human being on the planet, whether who you are, should know how to clean your own house and clean your own toilet. Because
Absolutely.
if you don't, and wait tables and serve people, because if you don't, you are doing a disservice to yourself because you don't know reality. You are
Absolutely.
stuck in a completely different universe that is not reality. And you don't know how to be in touch with normal human beings, period.
Well, I will
So,
say cleaning toilets, that's my job at the house. So that's the
okay.
one thing.
Well, I'll
I
have to
do
come
that and
grade
I
you
do
to
the
see how
vacuum.
good you are.
I do
Oh,
that and I do
whoa.
the vacuum. So I'm good. I'm good.
Well, these hands have cleaned about 80,000 toilets.
Oh my goodness.
So, and I've got the scars and calluses to prove. So, once someone cleans 80,000 toilets,
Yeah. Is that something you put
and
on a resume? Is that?
I put it on my resume. I've frosted over 1 million cupcakes. I
Yeah,
have, these hands have rolled out thousands of pie dough. So, these hands, God has blessed me with very strong hands
I
and a very
love it.
strong spirit,
I
which
love it. So
thank you,
you
God.
went you went from saying, okay, the music career, even though it
Yeah,
was a dream, and I think we need to pause for there just a moment
right,
because again, the whole basis of our podcast and our show is to encourage people. Because there's somebody right now that may be saying, you know what, I've had this dream. I've wanted to do
right,
this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And it's just
right,
not happening. And
right.
what would you say to that individual who is on the brink of going, okay, I don't know if it's time to give up on the dream, or do I keep trying, or when do I say enough is enough?
Well, I think when it becomes hard and you feel like this window of opportunity is closing and it doesn't feel like it's feeding your spirit
Mm,
anymore,
that's
I
good.
think that's really a sign from God that maybe this isn't, and it's becoming troublesome and and if it's not flowing, that's really a good sense, like to put the pulse on things. If things aren't flowing and you're working and striving and it's strife is
Mm.
the word.
When I was struggling with my mental health, one of the biggest obstacles I had to overcome was being willing to talk to someone. And for some of you, you may be in that same state where you don't want to leave your home. You don't trust anyone in your community that you can talk with. I want to introduce you to BetterHelp. They have licensed therapists that is able to take you and actually talk to you via Zoom so you can do it from the comfort of your own home. These are licensed therapists. You can talk about faith or you can not talk about faith. It doesn't matter. They're going to have something specific just for you. If you would like to receive a 10% discount for your first initial call, all you got to do is check out BetterHelp in the show notes below.
If you are feeling more strife than joy with what you're doing, you really need to reassess your life and what is happening in your life. And it's happened to me many times, not just with the singing, and we'll
Right,
get into that, but
right.
when it becomes strife and it becomes harder and it's not bringing you joy and you're not able to make a difference in people's lives, you need to reassess.
Oh, that's so good. So,
Yeah.
my story kind of mimics that in the sense of I was in ministry serving as a pastor. I'm now
Right.
a comedian, and I'm like, I geared everything in my life for ministry in the
Right.
sense of ministry serving, pastoring.
Right.
And now as a comedian, I'm like, but I see now where all of those years of being on that stage in front
Right.
of those people prepared me for this. And I finally got to admit it a few weeks ago to where I feel more fulfilled now than I
Hmm.
ever have in my life. And I now
Isn't that
know that I have
amazing?
found my purpose. And it's not in
Wow.
the typical ministry, setting that most
Right.
people would think you've got to be in. Because I feel like I'm encouraging people and I'm changing
Right.
lives, but it's not where I thought I was going to be. And I'm so glad
Mm.
that God didn't keep me where I thought I wanted to be. He had
Yes.
something more for me. And he goes, yeah, but if you'll just try this, that's the reason I love that part about your story is because, yeah, you had the dream of music. You know what? It
Right.
brought you to Nashville to be able to
Right.
really fulfill what you wanted to in life. And I think that's important.
Well, the thing about with what you're talking about is what God showed you. And what a preacher, a public speaker, and a comedian has to have, or you don't have it, is timing.
Correct.
If you don't have the art of timing in your performance, you aren't going to be a great speaker, preacher, or comedian.
Absolutely.
Period. If you don't have that timing, you don't have the gift. So what God was doing for you is he was teaching you through the ministry and through the hard knocks that I've read your story and what you've been through. He was teaching you the timing and the perception of gauging people, gauging your audience. That's so important. If you don't have that, you can't do what you're doing and be successful.
Correct. I also learned how to take up an offering too, by the way. So that was
Perfect. We all need to learn
that
how to do that.
clean the toilet and take an offering. Listen, you can make it.
There you go.
So we went from cleaning. Of course, we know you
Okay.
as Gigi with Gigi's
Right.
Cupcakes. So how did
Mhm.
we go from cleaning toilets to frosting cupcakes?
Faith,
Mm,
stepping out of the boat. So it took me 2 years to really get to grips to where I didn't feel like a loser. And I started listening to podcasts and sermons and of Joyce Meyer and people that would just, you're not a loser, you're this. And that's when I learned whose I am,
Mm.
right? Who I'm really bought. I'm bought with a price from God. And I'm his family. I'm not the worldly culture family. And I really had to learn that. And I've learned it the hard way. And I'm not saying I did a great job at it. And I'll tell you, I didn't. But thank the Lord, I've seen the light, and I understand that you can't be on the fence.
Mm.
You just can't be, especially right now with what's going on in our culture. That's a whole other story. So I was listening to that. I was, starting to like, okay, well, instead of saying, why not me? Or why me? Why me, God? Why me? Then my spirit started changing to, okay, I'm going to start being grateful for what God is giving. Maybe it is just a cleaning business, Gigi's cleaning company, which it was really successful for me. So I started building that, and I started thinking, why not me? So I was at the point to where God was conditioning my heart to being grateful. And I think that's another huge step for people. If you are always the victim and you are always the person saying, oh, why me,
Mm.
God? You're never going to be successful, because if you're not open to opportunity and grateful right where you are, cleaning a toilet, doing whatever you're doing, God will never bless you. He really won't, because a grateful heart brings in the harvest of blessings, period. If you are not grateful right where God has you, you're not going to grow. So I decided to be grateful right in the toilet cleaning, right in. And then one day, I was cleaning a client's bathroom. Every epiphany I've had has been near a toilet, go figure.
The
And
throne. You were near
that's
the
right.
throne.
That's my throne. You know what? If I can clean that throne, hopefully, God, I will be at the throne of God one day.
Absolutely.
I don't care if I'm,
Absolutely.
thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
Thank you, God. So I'm cleaning another toilet. I have my pink cleaning cedar gloves on, right? And my brother called and he's like, you know what? I'm standing in line in New York City at a cupcake shop for 2 hours, and these cupcakes aren't as good as yours. You should open a cupcake shop in Nashville. And I was like, what? And I had baked my whole life, but I'd never done cupcakes. And I thought, why not? Why not me? And that's when I was ready to be able to see a new path, because I had healed, and I was ready to hear what God wanted for me.
Wow.
And hearing is one thing, but having the tenacity and the faith to actually do it, that is where people get stuck most in life, especially women. They hear, but then they wrestle. Oh, I don't know. I'm insecure. I don't know. What if I fail? They stick themselves right there, and they never step out
Mm.
of that boat, and they never go for it. So you have to have the transition of hearing, being open to something new, and going, okay, you know what? If I fall, if I get my butt kicked, I'll get my butt kicked, because I'd already got my butt kicked, right? So many times, and
Right.
lost everything with music. I was thinking, well, okay. So I went to four banks. They laughed in my face. Cupcakes? Are you kidding me? And I'm like, but it's going to work. I've been in business since I was 15. I've got great credit. Laughed at me. And I thought, okay, God, if I'm really supposed to do this, how? What am I supposed
Yeah.
to do? And I just felt like I had to do it. So I took out $100,000 cash advances on my credit cards, and I went for it. And I opened my first store, and everyone thought I was the absolute craziest person ever. You're going to take out, and I'm like, well, if it's going to be $100,000 and I lose, then I'll just pay off $100,000 in my lifetime.
Right.
I'm going to do it. And so
Goodness. You just stepped out there, girl.
I have the gift of faith and tenacity.
Yes.
I wish I had the gift of mercy, but and patience. I'm learning that.
We, we just
Oh
let's
well,
just deal with what we've got. Let's just work with what we got.
working with what I got. So I can't have every gift, right?
You just take out $100,000 and you're like, okay, let's go find a location. Let me
I
buy
did.
the equipment I need. I mean, is that
First location I came to, I'm like, this is it. I see myself going in here. This is where, and God, I was standing right on, right off of Music Row on 19th and Broadway. And I'm like, this is it. And they're like, no, this is only the first place. I said, no, I see myself going into that building. I literally had epiphany.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, I see myself going in there. And they're like, you're crazy. The rent's this. I said, I've got to do it. So first place I went, bought the equipment and just started, found a contractor. I had $33 to my name when I opened my doors. And I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage. I didn't know. I was scared to death. And everyone's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I just have to follow with what God is,
Wow.
has given me. I have to do it. So I did it.
Talk to me about the first few months. Is it something that just it hit and people just
Yeah,
started standing in line, or did we
they
have
did.
some moments of second guessing?
No, it literally, I opened my doors. I put my little cupcake apron on that my mom had made me. I opened my doors and people, because I had been in the community, I'd cleaned most of Music Row. I've worked with all of them. It's so many musicians, so many producers. I cleaned all their houses. They're like, oh, well, let's buy cupcakes from Gigi, bless her heart. She started this little cupcake business. So they'd buy cupcakes and they really had mercy on me. And the funny thing is, and I don't even think Taylor Swift knows this, but she bought thousands of cupcakes from me. She loved the red velvet cupcake. And
Oh
every
my
year,
goodness.
for CRS Country Music Radio Seminar, she would buy 700, 800, 900 personally TS white chocolate red velvet cupcakes that we would put in all of the hotel rooms
Oh my
for all the
goodness.
radio people. So fast forward, she doesn't even know
That is
that
so
there
crazy.
I had an epiphany at her toilet and she's buying thousands of cupcakes from me. I mean, it's
Wow.
just like, and all of these stars were like, oh, wasn't that the girl that rented our equipment? Trace Adkins. Boom. I
Ah,
rented his equipment when I was working at Tilly's and Lucy's, right when he got a deal. I mean, just all this crazy stuff that everyone's like, that poor little thing, let's help her. Didn't she clean houses and sing? And there we go. And
that
it
is
just
crazy.
started. And it was just like, I literally went from a toilet cleaner, not a toilet cleaner,
Right.
a small little business owner to this CEO of this company in 5 years. It was just the craziest thing. I went from one store to 124 stores in 24 states in 5 years.
My
And I
goodness.
had a child lit by myself. Daddy, that's a whole other story. That's in the book. And I was taking her on the road with me at 6 weeks, breastfeeding and, opening stores and swirl training. And I had this because I always wanted to be, that was the other dream, being a mom.
Wow.
And, and I just, and, it turned out it was a little different way of not God's way, but he blessed it.
Mhm.
I have a beautiful, wonderful 13-year-old now, and she's the light of my life. And it was very hard, and I would not recommend it to anybody, not doing it God's way.
Mhm.
And it has been very difficult, but God has mercy on us.
Absolutely.
And he's so good.
I could you were just painting that picture so perfectly of seeing that building and walking in and saying, "This is it.
Yeah,
This is where I see myself."
that's it.
Because first of all, I wanted to point out that if you've got a dream, if you can't see it first, you're never going to see it happen.
No, no, never.
And so I love that part that you said, I see myself going into this building. But then my
Right.
mind went back to the fact of you were just across the street at Tootsie's trying to
Yeah,
make a
correct.
living, and
Right.
your purpose was that close to you the entire time and you didn't know it.
I know. Isn't that weird? And I took a picture. Remember, it was called the Nashville Club. You might have not been in Nashville at that time, but right across the street was the old building that Gigi's, the first Gigi's. And I took a picture with a bunch of musicians at that building, and behind me was the place. 10 years
No,
later, I'm going to be standing pumping out millions of cupcakes. Like, if someone
that's
would have told
mind
me
blowing.
that,
Oh, it's mind blowing.
it's mind blowing.
Ah,
It's amazing what God has for us that we don't ever attain. The storehouses of dreams and buildings full of dreams that God has for us, but we never step out and we never think we can do it. So God's like, I can't, these are for you. Just say yes and let me help you. and we never get our dreams because we don't believe enough to do it.
On one side of the street, you were trying to do it yourself
Yeah.
and failing.
And
And
failing.
then all you had to do was cross the street and do it God's way.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting here talking to you because we love Gigi's Cupcakes.
I know.
It's
God is
crazy.
he's so good. He is
So
so
out of
good.
everything we have talked about today, um, I guess the only other question I have for you is there really 278 flavors of
There
cupcakes?
There were. We started with 32 because I had the basics on my first, and then people would come in and ask for things. I didn't even have wedding cake on my first menu, and that was our best seller. It's a third of our business across the country. Wedding cake, white on white. And some guy came in, he's like, "What? Why don't you have a white cupcake?" I'm like, I do, but it has chocolate on it. And he's like, "Why don't you have vanilla on it?" And I'm like, "Well, do you want me to make you one?" He's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, hold on. Let me go figure it out." So I went in the back and he's like, "Well, give me 12." Just give me 12 of them, whatever you have. And I said, "Okay." And I'm like, um, I said, "Give me the white nonpareils, the little white little." And I said, "Okay." And I brought it out to him. He's like, "There you go. That's it." He goes, "What are you going to name it?" I said, "Wedding cake." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll take him." And
Oh
so
my
that's where
goodness.
wedding cake started. It's just like, and then red velvet. Here's another, mostly most people don't know this story, which is this is the rejection story that
Mhm.
you can make rejection and turn it into something fabulous if you believe in yourself enough and God will get your back, right? So I'm in there and there's a line 30 minutes long. This lady gets to the counter and she's like, "I'd like 12 red velvet." And I said, "Oh, I don't have those today." She goes, "What?" And literally a room full of people. She freaks. She starts yelling at me, cussing at me. "How dare you not have those today?" I said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a menu." And she goes, "Why don't you have a menu? That's consistency." I mean,
Oh my
yelling
goodness.
at me, and all the people are in there going, and I'm like, "Ma'am, it's a cupcake. I'm so sorry." She's like, "How dare you? You better have them tomorrow. I'm coming back in. My name's Karen." I said, "Well, that's appropriate." Karen, I think it was invented in my cupcake shop.
Yes, you started
Karen.
it.
My name's Karen, and I'm like, "Of course your name is Karen.
Yes.
Yes. I
Yeah.
can think of another few names, but we'll just leave it at Karen."
Yes.
She goes, "I'm Karen, Karen J. I'll be back tomorrow. I want 12. How dare you?" And everyone's like, and people are like, "Are you gonna cry?" They made the little girl at the counter cry. I'm like, "It's
Oh my
okay, it's okay."
gosh.
I go in the back and people are like, "Are you crying, Miss Gigi?" I'm like, "Crying? Are you kidding me?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, people are yelling at me over these cupcakes." Like, if you're that passionate to yell over a cupcake, are you kidding me? I'm like, ching, ching, ching. Like, my mind went, "Oh my, I've got to create a menu. I've got to create consistency." Okay, that night I went home. I made a whole menu. Like, okay,
Wow.
red velvet. They can go online. They can see when the red velvets are. Do. I did that. We ended up having to have red velvet, midnight magic, white and dark every day, cookie dough and wedding cake and strawberry every day. And then we'd change out, during the summer, or our caramel one or whatever. So we had to have that because those were our top ones. But that next day, Karen J came in. I'm like, "Here's your 12 cupcakes, ma'am. I'm really sorry I didn't have them yesterday." She goes, "You better me." She goes, "These are the best things I've ever tasted. How dare you?" And I'm like, cha-ching, I mean, all I saw were money. I didn't
Yes.
see rejection because I'd had so much rejection in my life, and people had cussed at me, called me every name in the book, spit at me, thrown fruit at me over
Wow.
at I was at a biker bar singing one night, and they had wire up. I'm like, "Why is there wire up here?" I'm in my little, sequin little boots and I'm like 19 years old. And they're like, "Honey, it gets, if you don't sing the right songs, they're going to throw things at you." I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Well, they did. So the rejection from people throwing things at me and cussing at me and
Wow.
throwing cigarettes at me and fighting me on stage and all of that, when she came in and was demanding and yelling a red velvet cupcake to me, I just saw money because I had been through all of that rejection. And come to
Mm.
find out, there was more rejection coming.
Yeah.
Oh, who knew? That's a whole other story. So, yes, I have lived a life of letting go to grow, painful rejection over and over and over, and people trying to take me down on a daily basis
Wow.
because the fact of the matter is, and here's the fact, when you're doing something good and you're trying to make it in the world, all of the haters, they try to climb and get you every day of your life. You will never be free from it. There will always be haters. There will always be people that want to take you down, and there will always be jealousy because they don't love themselves and they don't know who they are because they're not grounded in the Lord. Period.
I don't know how to add to that. I mean, that's what that's where we have to end the show. I mean, you just
Mic
literally
drop.
told people how to be successful, and then you just picked
Well,
up your little drink and drank it like I do this every day. And I was like, you just literally saved half of the world. Let me give me a sip. But that is so good. So, I mean, really,
uh,
thank you so much for taking this time. We're gonna have you back on the podcast. You're gonna
I,
have to
I,
come back.
I would,
And
I need to because I need to tell them the rest of the story, and it
absolutely.
even gets worse, but better. And
Oh,
I'm
we're gonna
writing
have to
my next book about it.
we're gonna have to talk about that. Gigi, I just thank you. Thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
the time. You have helped so many
I
people today. And
thank
I
you.
thank you for not sticking to the toilet and just
Right.
going after the cupcake. I
But
love
it's
it.
okay to still be at the toilet. You know,
Absolutely.
it's okay. Wherever God has you, and this is entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And I'm here, and then now I'm here. And then, that's just the life of an entrepreneur. So it's okay to stay and be at the toilet too, still sometimes.
I love it. I
So
love it. Gigi, thank you
thank
so much.
you.
I can't wait till we talk again.
I know. I appreciate you. Thank you for all that you do.